Okay, so we'll get started. So welcome everyone to our Gita Gyan level 2. We will continue with our prayers first to begin. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimhaiti Namine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayatim Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Ramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Taksat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna, once again, welcome everybody to our Gita Gyan level 2. So we will continue with our Gita Mahatyma narration from the Padma Purana. And after that, we will discuss the summary of the chapter, which is being glorified in this particular Gita Mahatmya. And after that, we will have a little bit of practical spirituality before we end with Q&A, if there are any. So with Gita Mahatmya, this is conversation between Lord Shiva and Parvati Devi, who is recounting another conversation that took place between Narayana and Lakshmi Devi. And here they are discussing the glories of Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter. So we have now all covered 12 chapters already. So we are now in chapter 13, the glories of chapter 13. So Lord Shiva says to Parvati, please hear the unlimited glories of the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, by hearing which you will become very happy. And our story, Lord Shiva narrates, it begins again with a river. So in this time, it is a very beautiful large river called the Tungabhadra River. Now, Tungabhadra River is in the south of India, and you can see here, southern India, and it begins somewhere from one of the branches of the tribute. It actually begins in Karnataka, And from Karnataka, it crosses over to Andhra Pradesh, which is now particularly the Telangana border. And from there, it joins another river called the Krishna River. So few tributaries join the Krishna River, which empties in the basin of Telangana on the east. So this is Tungabhadra River. So it's a holy river. And next to this banks of this Tungabhadra River in modern day Karnataka, there was a town, actually something like a town city, which was called Hariharapura. Pura means city, and Hariharapura. So why it was called Hariharapura? Because in the either banks of the river, two temples were built face to face. So on one side of the bank was the temple to Hari, and the other side of the bank was the temple to Hara. So Lord Hari is Vishnu, right? And Hara is Lord Shiva. So Harihara Pura, and it's a holy city those days. So those two particular temples mentioned in the Padma Purana, it's not existing now. Probably they need to excavate it. But what is there now is a temple called Harihareshwara temple. So what they've done, this one is about 400 years old. It's a temple where what they have done, they have taken the Hari and they have taken the Hara and they have joined the murtis together, and they are calling the temple the deity Harihara. So even in scripture there is something like that. There are stories of such a situation where it has happened, where Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu has joined in one particular form. For example, the picture of the story of Mohini Murti, and how and she and Lord Shiva, they merged in one particular form. And they are called Harihara temple. They don't become one, they are separated always. But at the same time, this particular deity, there's a nice pastime, so it's called Harihareshwara temple. And it was visited by this village, this town was visited also in the 6th century by Sankaracharya. So when and it seems that the place where he visited, it's actually he actually met Lord Krishna there. There's a story saying that how Lord Krishna himself came to meet Sankaracharya, and then blessed him with his with some of his bhajans, where Lord Shankaracharya would be singing his bhajans. So the place where he met Lord Krishna, Sankaracharya met Lord Krishna, is still there, is commemorated. They have built a math. Math means it's like a monastery kind of a temple. It's called Sri Math. So that commemorates the location where Shankaracharya met Lord Krishna. So in this, you can see this temple has very beautiful architecture, though it's 400 years old. It's quite unique, the architecture. And you can see here, these are the pillars inside the temple. Very beautiful circular pillars made out of stone, very large also. And this is the inner sanctum. You can see the carvings are very intricate. And in the inner sanctum is the deity of Harihara. It's the combination of Mohini Murti and Lord Shiva. So on the right hand side, you can see Lord Vishnu Murti holding the chakra. And on the left hand side, you can see Lord Shiva holding the Trisula, the trident. So anyway, that's just a bit of a National Geographic history kind of a thing for us to get an introduction. It's like, we cannot visit many places now with COVID. So I thought it would be nice if we can do virtual visits each time. So basically my point is also to note that this Padma Purana is not just mythology, it's history. So you can see the places, the temples, the locations, they're all still there and all ready for us to take advantage of them. And it's mentioned also in this area of Harihara Pura this is the place where in previous ages, during the Satya Yuga, Daksha, the father-in-law of Uma Devi, Uma is the first Sati. She was the wife of Lord Shiva before Sati burnt herself to ashes and then later became Parvati. So at that time, she was called Sati. And Sati, the father of Sati was Daksha. And Daksha was one of the sons of Brahma. And he was performing many sacrifices. So one of the sacrifices he performed, fire sacrifices he performed in this place. Okay, so anyway, based back to Padma Purana. So Padma Purana is saying in the banks of the, what was the name of the river? I forgot the name. Tungabhadra River. Okay. In the banks of the Tungabhadra River, there's this city called Hariharapura. And in that place, there lived a very nice Brahmana devotee. And his name was Hari Dikshit. We have the name Dikshit, like we have Madhuri Dikshit. So Dikshit comes from the word Dikshita. So Hari Dikshita. Dikshita means one who is initiated or one who has taken Diksha. So that was actually the origin of the name. So those people who have taken Diksha or initiation, so they are called Dikshita. And Hari Dikshita means one who has taken initiation of Lord Hari. So his name was Hari Dikshita, and he was a very nice devotee. He was very simple, very learned and everything. However, this story is not about him. This story is about his wife. Unfortunately, his wife was not a very nice person. She was an extremely, what you could say, low type of personality. And she was, though she was born of a Brahmana and everything, but her character, her behavior, and her pastimes are all of the lowest class. And it was known by public also. Even people in that village where they were living, they all knew about her character. So, and so much so that her real name was forgotten and she became known as Durachara. Durachara means one of low-born character. But still, in those days, there was no such thing as divorce. So therefore, the Brahmana still lived with her and everything. But she was a very difficult person to live with. She was very abusive. In fact, she never once also respected her husband. She, in fact, didn't like the husband ever since the day of marriage. And as such, they never consummated that marriage. So it was an arrangement. They lived there, and she was always abusive of her husband, spoke very harsh words, and in that way rude to her husband's relatives and friends. And at the same time, she was also extremely addicted to lust, to her lust. So and she never liked her husband, but she liked other types of men. And therefore she and at the same time she was also very intoxicated. She liked to take secretly, she would like to take drinks, alcoholic beverages. And in this way she became very low down. So and she used to have lots of affairs secretly and also not too secretly sometimes. But living in such a society in those days, it's not easy. If somebody behaves in such a way, they will be ostracized, and people will speak ill of her. But still, out of respect for her husband, the Brahmana Hari Dikshit, they all tolerated her. And also because she came from a good family, so out of respect for her parents and everything. So why she became like that? She became like that due to bad association. And anyway, what happened was she was so attached to her lusty desires that she went as far as to even have a secret rendezvous, a place, a secret meeting place there was an abandoned shack near the forest. So sometimes she was not able to meet her lovers in the village area. So she would go to this abandoned shack in the middle of the forest just to meet her lovers. This was the type of activity that she would be doing. Okay, I can just mute you, Mataji. Okay, please don't mind. All right, and then one day, what happened? This lady Durachara, she was feeling very, she was very much disturbed by sensual lust and everything, and she was wanting to go and meet one of her lovers in the forest. So she left in the middle of the night, right? And as she was leaving, she was thinking of her of the experiences that she was going to have. When people are doing something illegal and something exciting and illegal, they are, people will say nothing like some kind of adrenaline rush. Their heart will start beating, excitement will pulse and pound in her heart. So she was feeling that way, very excited, and in the dark shadows of the night, as she was passing through, the night looked very beautiful. And it looked very beautiful, and the shadows looked very inviting, and the moon was very inviting. So it all worked to increase her imagination and increase her lusty desires. So in that way, she built herself to a very high fever pitch of desire. And of course she was also intoxicated. She was taking intoxicants. And in this way, she started imagining, and she was walking, laughing, smiling, and stumbling about in the dark. But still, somehow she must have lost her way to her shack. And in her drunken stupor, she was walking about, laughing, and she stumbled here and there, but she lost her way. And somehow, because she lost her way, she was not able to meet with her with her lover and everything. So then she came out of her stupor. She sat down, and she realized she was lost. And more than the feeling of fear because she was lost, she was more disturbed by her desire, that it was not satisfied. So she sat down and started to cry. And in that way, she was crying, and sometimes the cries were sometimes a bit loud. And what happened? It attracted a nearby tiger. So this tiger heard her cries and crept slowly to where she was. And he started snarling and roaring at her, ready to pounce on her. But suddenly, somehow, there was a lightning strike, and certain things changed. Suddenly, she got the notion in her heart, this Durachara, to question this tiger. She doesn't know where she got this notion from, but she started questioning this tiger. Oh, tiger, before you are going to kill me, please tell me why you are doing this to me. Why are you come? Are you my sins personified who have come to punish me for what I have done? Or are you simply the manifestation of my desire that you have manifested in this passionate animal form of yours, and you have come to devour me and enjoy me? So in this way, she was asking the tiger. And somehow also, the tiger also was able to understand. Amazingly, the tiger started replying to her. And this king of animals, he laughed at her in a very fearsome way, and told this woman, this Durachara, before I kill you, I am going to relate to you a story. Since you have asked, I will tell you my history. And then this tiger tells this Durachara about his history. So he says, many years ago, in the southern parts, near this area only, there was another tributary of a river which connects to the Krishna river. And that river is Malapaha river. So you can see Padma Purana, all the stories begins with rivers. So it's very interesting. It's actually also mentioned, rivers are very important. They, especially in India, the holy rivers, many temples are built along the river. And there are many predictions also. In fact, it's said that in Kali Yuga, many saintly personalities will take birth along the place where the holy rivers flow. So this kind of places, the tirthas, the rivers, the holy places, they are called tirthas. Tirthas means like stations, places where the mercy of the Lord is quite strong. It's still there. So one can take advantage of it. And so anyway, back to this. So this is called the Malapaha River. Nowadays, it's known as the Malaprabha River. Slightly changed in the words. So at that place also, there was a famous temple. And this temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva. And he was known as Panchalinga. Panchalinga means, this is not the same temple. That temple is not there, but there is a temple for Panchalinga still in that area. So this is the more recent temple. So Panchalinga means 5. Pancha is 5, Linga. The 5 lingas all joined together like this. In that town, so this tiger is saying, I took birth as a Brahmana in that town. So they all come from good births. So one of the lessons of these stories we hear is how we take different births and how so many of them fall down from their previous births of good, although good parentage and everything, because they don't take advantage of this human birth. So therefore, they accrue all kinds of sinful activities and they fall down in their next lives. So anyway, he was a Brahmana born in this city along this area of where the Panchalinga Shiva temple is dedicated to. So this was the Brahmana. And this he was telling how although he also was born in a Brahmana family and everything, but he also fell down. And though he maintained his Brahminical nature, he maintained his Brahminical occupation, but he became very greedy. So his lust, his sin was that of greed. And also he was very uncontrolled over his senses. So he used to say, I used to sit on the banks of the river and perform sacrifices. So one of the things he used to do is, yes, he did perform sacrifices and everything, right? But he used to do them for unqualified people. So that's a warning for all priests and brahmanas. So one has to perform sacrifices to qualified people. So sometimes people, they come with bad motives. They come with ill-advised purposes. And this Brahmana, he used to perform sacrifices for all of them, even though they were not qualified to take part in such performances. They had neither faith, nor they had, they just did it for the sake of social convention, or to show off their wealth, that kind of a thing. So he used to perform sacrifices for unqualified people. That was one of his sins. And then on top of that, he would go and eat from homes of materialistic people. So that generally is not something which is prescribed. So those who are in the Brahminical nature, or those who are in the spiritual practices, they should not eat from homes of very materialistic people. Why? There's a lot of science behind this. We are what we eat. But at the same time, the consciousness of the cook and the consciousness of the person who is preparing the food, delivering the food, serving the food, all these things, it's said to come to pass through to the person who is finally eating the food. So that's why in spiritual circles, in based on, in matas and gurukuls and all that, generally you will find that those who are cooks in the temples, they are very high level brahmanas. Not normal people are not taken to be cooks in the temples. They have proper stature and proper learned, proper mood is very important, proper sadhana. So those who are in good consciousness, when they cook the food also retains the good consciousness of that cook. And at the same time, when it's served with to the Lord, of course, then it becomes prasadam, divyam, it becomes transcendental. And after that, it's also served to others. So in this way, the consciousness flows. So therefore, it is important to see the consciousness of the persons who are serving. Generally, sometimes those who are very sensitive, they can also feel, some kind of, why do we get certain types of dreams? Why do we get certain types of desires? You might notice after eating a certain type of food cooked by a certain type of people, you will find that we might have certain different consciousness or different kind of desires that suddenly might come. This is also there in the Mahabharata. One of the reasons why Bhishma did not open his mouth and stop the disrobing of Draupadi, he tells, it's because I have eaten the contaminated food grains offered by Duryodhana. So that is the reason my consciousness became polluted. So like that. So anyway, that's one. So, and then he would say that he would also criticize other Brahmanas who were strictly following the regulative principles. And so he was critical of others, and he would also never give charity. He will, because he was greedy, he will collect everything and he will perform sacrifices and he will collect all his money. In fact, he will collect more than necessary. Brahmanas are supposed to live simple lives. The slogan for Brahmanas are simple living, high thinking. But he was very greedy for material opulences. So he would perform more sacrifices than necessary. He would not consider the qualifications, whether it should or it should not. All he wanted was to collect more and more. Eventually, he grew old. So this Brahmana, he grew old, and as he grew old, he did not have any family members to really take care of him. He was so miserly, so therefore he became alone and became very weak eventually, that he couldn't perform his sacrifices. And due to his greedy nature, he spent it in a lot of, because his senses were not controlled. So he was oftentimes spending more than his means. So like that he was doing, and then finally he grew old. He became very poor, and he became a beggar in his old age. And he went on begging because he was a Brahmana, so he expected people to give him food. The culture was still there. But somehow some of his sins caught up with him. So when he was begging, he mistakenly went to a group of Brahmanas who were a bit like him also, who were very cruel by nature and very greedy, and they were making fun of this old man. They did not honor the culture of serving the food to him. So they actually, and there were some dogs about, and they actually incited those dogs to chase away this beggar. So some of those dogs came to him and they were chasing him, and he was running, and one of the dogs bit him, and out of that he fell down, and this dog came to bite him. And in this way, he was very old as it was. He fell down and broke his bone, and due to the pain of the dog bite and the fear that he was having of seeing the dog's teeth, fearsome teeth, he died. And because the last thing that he remembered was seeing the fearsome teeth of the dog, so he remembered the teeth only. And in the next life, he got the life of a tiger, the same type of teeth. He received more fearsome the teeth now, he became a tiger. So therefore the tiger was saying, such was my life, and now I am going through the sins of my previous lives. So but somehow, by the grace of the Lord, for some reason, probably due to my adherence of some Brahminical principles or something, I must have served someone somewhere. I was able to remember my past life. So although I am in this tiger form, right, I will not kill or eat any pious people. So I will only kill those who are cruel and expert at cheating others, right? So and very fallen personalities such as yourself, Durachara, the tiger told her. And then with that, she made a very terrible roar. He opened the mouth and leaped on this Durachara and ripped her apart and ate her up. So that was the end of this lady, Durachara, the wife of Hari Dikshita. So then what happened? It doesn't end there, of course, because, the body dies, but the soul moves on. So what happened? The soul, with the impressions of her previous life in the subtle body of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, immediately went to Yamaraj and went to hell. So it's described in the Padma Purana how she was put into two different types of hell. The first hell was known as Duyada. So in the Garuda Purana and also in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other places, the different levels of hell are described. Actually, it is described that there are many hundreds and thousands of planets in the hellish regions, each of them dedicated for different types of torture. But generally, they are divided into 7 layers, 7 dimensions of hell. Even in Islam also, they see the 7 levels of hell. Even in Christianity, you can see the 7 gates of hell. So not gates, the 7 lower regions of hell. So it's all coming from the Vedic scriptures only, which predate all these other things. So the first hell she went to was called Duyada. So Duyada was described as an entire planet full of liquid. There was no land in there, very few islands here and there, but the entire world was full of blood, urine, and stool, fecal matter. So that was how the entire world was filthy, and she had to stay there for a very long time, eking out her miserable existence in various ways. And then later, after her period of suffering was due to be completed, then she was thrown into another type of hell. So the first hell, Duyada, she went because of her very low class behavior. So therefore, because of the low class behavior, she associated with very low class things. Because she was used to drinking liquor and behaving in that manner, so therefore she was sent to such a situation. And then later she was thrown into the hell called Raurava. Raurava is a more fearsome place. It's there they don't just live, they are actually it seems the torture described there is that those who are very envious and those who cause harm to others, they go to this Raurava hell. So Raurava hell is described that it seems they are given a certain type of body, and this body is thrown into a pit, and in that pit there are savage serpent-like creatures. If you see anaconda, very scary, fearsome naga serpents type of creatures, they are called rurus. The word for them is ruru, a type of serpent creature, which will chase the person continuously, and they will spend their lives and their moments running from one place to another, and they will be bitten, and they will escape narrow deaths, and finally they will be eaten by these rurus, swallowed by them alive. So that kind of torture they go through, but their body is such that even so they are swallowed, they don't die. They suffer in the stomach of that creature, being burnt by the gastric fire. So like that it goes on, and then they again spit it out, and then again they take the same body, and then they go through this kind of pains. So that is Raurava hell. For different sinful activities. And after all this, then she takes birth on earth after clearing most of her karma for this life and also from her previous lives, because hellish suffering clears a lot of karma. It clears many lifetimes of karma. But still, there was still so much of bad karma left. So she then had to take birth again. She took birth in the Hariharapura, in that city of Hariharapura. And this time she took birth as a very low class caste, a very low caste person, a Shudra. And even so, she still had a bit of vestiges of that desire, because despite all her suffering and everything, her desires did not yet go. She still had such desires in her heart. It still came with her in this life also. So again, she started performing such activities due to her previous impressions and her desires. But still, because of some previous association, somewhere in her previous life, she had done some good service to someone, to a devotee. So that small thing which she had done crept into this life and gave her the opportunity to meet a very advanced devotee. So while she was a Shudra, she used to sweep the leaves and things in a temple. So this is what she used to do as to get her earning. So there was a temple of Jambaka Devi. Jambaka Devi is Parvati, and Lord Shiva's temple was nearby. So she used to go and sweep the leaves in the temple of Jambaka Devi. So by that activity, she got the opportunity to meet a very great saint one day. So this saint was called Vasudeva. And when she met this saint, she was not attracted really, but she happened to meet him. And this saint was always sitting, and he was chanting and reciting the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, and somehow she liked, because she had these lusty desires in her heart, she was a bit attracted to this saint's features. So she wasn't really attracted to the voice, or to the chanting itself, but she liked the good looks of this saint. And somehow she would come near to sweep when he was chanting. And in this way, she used to hear the chanting. And like that, she used to come all the time. And eventually, she could memorize the chanting also. Somehow, it just, because she came to listen so many times. And in this way, she slowly, her desires left her, and she became purified, and she started to enjoy hearing this chanting more and more. And finally, when she died, she was able to give up that body of the Chandala woman and became completely free from reactions of all her other sinful activities. Not only her sinful activities she gave up, she was able to purify her desire also. Because you notice, even after she went to hell and everything, even after suffering all that, still her desire could not be removed. So, but what could finally remove that desire? It was devotional service activities, such as hearing. She was able to hear from the lotus mouth of Vasudeva, the saint who spoke the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So in this way, by continuously reciting, the seed of bhakti bloomed in her heart, and she was able to eventually attain a four-armed form similar to Lord Vishnu, and she was taken back to Vaikuntha. So this is the happy story of how even such fallen persons, even after going through almost hopeless situations, they are finally able to be attained, liberated and free from all sinful activities. So therefore, anyone who hears this also, we can also, if such a person can develop such a glorious situation, what about us? We also can, right? So simply we have to have faith in this process of hearing and chanting and take shelter of Bhagavad Gita, which is the instructions of Lord Krishna himself personally to us. And in this way, we serve Bhagavad Gita by reciting Bhagavad Gita and by following its instructions. And in this way, we can also purify and perfect our lives. So this is Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 13. That was the story in glorification of chapter 13. Right, so now it's now 8:30. So I will just try to go through the summary of what chapter 13 is all about. So of course, we have covered this already previously in level 1. So chapter 13 is known as Shaitra, Shaitranya, Vibhaga Yoga. So I'm not sure how many of you could remember these words, right? So in the beginning, Arjuna will ask Krishna in this chapter, please tell me what is Shaitra, what is Shaitranya, what is Jnana, what is Jneyam, what is Prakruti, what is Purusa. So like that, she will ask Krishna and Krishna will tell. So this chapter is, Vibhaga means to differentiate. To differentiate between the Shaitra and the one who knows the Shaitra. Shaitra means place, right? The place and one who knows the place. So in other words, basically, this is referring to the body and the soul. The body is like the place of activity, and the soul is, and the realized soul, one who has taken up spiritual practice and understood this knowledge, is known as the Shaitranya, one who has realized this. So one who knows the difference between the body and the soul. What is this difference? Chapter 2, right? Basically, the difference is the body is temporary and the body undergoes 6 different types of transformations, right? Namely, it takes birth and then it grows and then it produces byproducts and then it remains for some time and then it deteriorates and then finally it dies. So these are the 6 transformations of the body. And after that, you get a new body. So in this way, the body keeps changing. So it is temporary, undergoes 6 transformations, and it dies. It is not permanent. Whereas the soul, on the other hand, is neither of these things. It does not take birth. It is aja, unborn. It is eternal, sanatana, right? It is purana. It's right from, it's the oldest, right? We are all, if somebody asks you, how old are you? Our reply, the one who has realized the soul will reply, I am as old as you are. Because we are all eternal and we are all primeval, of all the same age. There is no one who's older. There's no such thing as an old soul. So all souls are the same in terms of nature, quality. So therefore, it's just the conditioning that matters. Just like the soul has been put into an inferior body. So therefore, the conditioning is very strong. So therefore, it looks like as if the soul is, it looks like as if the person is a very, not very evolved person. But that's just the conditioning. Very much in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, or someone is in the higher level, they'll be in the mode of goodness. So one who knows this difference. So to know this difference, that is all about chapter 13. So let me just quickly brief you on the main points of chapter 13. So there is Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the one who has created everything. Obviously, there is a creator. Creation cannot exist without a creator. There is nowhere in our experience in our life where we have seen something which is created that does not have a creator. Right? Everything comes by design. So the Lord has created everything, and his energies can be divided into the spiritual energy, right? And he is the ultimate enjoyer. Therefore, he's called the Purusa, the ultimate enjoyer. He enjoys all kinds of activities in all kinds of flavors, which are ever increasing and ever changing in ever continuous variegatedness. So that is the nature of spiritual realm. That is his nature. And we are the jivas. parts and parcels of him. So we are supposed to be dasa, and there are many who are dasa. Dasa means servant. So the servant of the Supreme Lord. So he is the enjoyer. We serve the Supreme Lord in his enjoyment, and in that way we also enjoy. By his service, we get satisfied. How is that? So we can ask, it's very much like we are let's say we want to enjoy food, right? How do we enjoy food? Can we enjoy food by eating the food? So, but what is part and parcel of us? We have many parts of our body, right? We have the different organs in our body. We have our fingers, we have our hand, we have our eyes, our nose. So can the fingers, let's say, so similarly, we are also parts and parcels of the Lord. So we are like the fingers or the digits, like that, for example. So can the finger say, I want to enjoy the food on my own, right? I don't want you, the stomach, to enjoy. I want to enjoy the finger. The fingers cannot enjoy the food. It can only play with the food and everything, but it cannot really derive the pleasure. How can the finger enjoy the food? The finger enjoys the food by serving the whole, right? The parts of the body enjoy when the body is satisfied, right? So by working in cooperation with the body, we take the food, we put the food in our mouth, and the tongue enjoys it, and it passes through, and the stomach is satisfied. Then automatically the fingers are also satisfied, isn't it? Does the finger become agitated because it did not have enough food or whatever? Automatically, it's just naturally it's satisfied. So in the same way, by serving the Supreme Purusha, we, the jivas, become automatically satisfied. We become automatically peaceful. So when automatic peace is achieved, how the peace is achieved? By recognizing the supremacy of the Lord, by serving the Supreme Lord, by dedicating our activities and our thinking and our mind and our lives for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. That's why the Lord is known as Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha means the master of the senses, or the Lord of the senses. So we are meant to please the master of the senses, Hrishikesha. So, but not everyone is dasa. So the Lord doesn't force anyone to be like this, right? So many souls, many jivas, they see the Supreme Lord, they just fall in love with it. And they say, I just want to serve you. And they become completely happy and satisfied. And they not only become happy and satisfied in a passive manner, they go on to have wonderful relationships with the Lord, so much so that they become sometimes more ecstatic than the Lord himself. So that these are very confidential pastimes. So that is the nature of this relationship. So, but the Lord gives free will to the jiva. So some jivas, they want to be Purusha. When they see the Lord, they don't want to serve the Lord. They want to enjoy like the Lord, Purusha. So they thought that they are also Purusha. So to satisfy this mentality, this kind of desires of the jiva, the Lord provides. So it's not possible to enjoy in the spiritual world in that way, because even the spiritual energy itself serves the Lord. So it's not possible for them to remain in that situation. So therefore, the jivas go to the material energy. They take shelter of the back of the Lord, which is the material energy. So this is called, therefore, the Shaitra. The Shaitra means the place. So to enjoy in this way, the Lord provides a place for the jiva to enjoy. So that place is called the Prakruti, material energy. The Prakruti, the material energy which creates the material creation. We will hear about the Prakruti in more detail in chapter 14, how the Prakruti works, but this is the place, Shaitra. Prakruti is known as Shaitra, the place. So the jiva thinking that he is Purusha, in the mood of the Purusha, he goes to the Shaitra, the Prakruti, which is the material energy, right? And over there, he cannot enjoy still, because the jiva is spirit, he's spiritual, and Prakriti is material. So he cannot enjoy the material by himself. So what happens? The Lord arranges for the jiva who goes to this Prakriti to get a body made out of Prakriti. And that way, he is able to enjoy. The jiva is able to interact. Just like when we want to, let's say there's a video game, a computer video game. If we want to interact with the computer video game, we need input devices, right? We need something like a virtual reality set, a pair of goggles, you wear a pair of gloves or something, and then, you do things like that, and then you're able to interact with the virtual environment. So similarly, the soul wants to interact in that virtual environment of the Prakriti. So therefore, suitable equipment is provided by the Lord. So he takes a type of body according to his desire. And then he takes birth in this mother Prakriti. But actually, who knows this Prakriti well? Who knows this Shaitra? So who knows this body, the nature of the material elements, the nature of this universe? The ultimate person who knows it is obviously the Supreme Lord, because it's all part of his energy. So one who knows all about this material energy and these material elements which forms the material bodies of the jivas is known as Shaitranya. Shaitranya means one who knows the Shaitra. One who knows the Shaitra is called Shaitranya. So he is the ultimate Shaitranya, because he knows not only our body, he knows every body, and he knows the entire material creation in detail. But at the same time, the jiva who has his own body also, and who takes up spiritual knowledge and understands the nature of how his body works, he will also be known as Shaitranya, one who knows the body. He cannot know other people's body, but he knows it in principle because he knows how it works due to spiritual knowledge, jnana. So therefore, he is also called Shaitranya, once he has understood this spiritual knowledge. So this jiva, as I said, he enters into Prakriti. So jiva is pure, his spirit, but he mixes with the mud on earth. He comes down like rainwater, and rain is pure, the water is pure, but when it mixes with mud, then it becomes colored. So it becomes, the mud looks like brown color, blue color, or dark color. So similarly, he mixes with this material nature, and he shows the three modes: the mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, according to what kind of mud he has mixed with, right? So therefore, mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha mana shastani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. Bhagavad Gita 15:7. And in this way, he becomes prakriti stani karshati. He becomes conditioned, just like the mud conditions the rainwater and changes its color and its taste and its nature. So the jiva becomes conditioned. And in this way, he goes about thinking that he is this body, that he is born in this society, that he is this particular personality of this particular job, of this particular nature. And he goes about doing his material duties in ignorance of his actual identity. So that is what happens. So chapter 13 also, it talks about Shaitra, it talks about Shaitranya, right? It talks about Purusa. So let us go quickly about the detailed aspect of this body, right? So the soul, what does the soul want to do? The soul wants to enjoy. And what does he want to enjoy in this material world? He wants to enjoy basically the sense objects. right? He wants to enjoy form, he wants to enjoy sound, he wants to enjoy smell, he wants to enjoy taste, he wants to enjoy touch. In this way, this is one layer of enjoyment. So he wants to satisfy himself. These are the sense objects. But he cannot do that because Jiva is spirit and these sense objects are matter, material. So he cannot do that. So remember I said that just like we want to enjoy the computer game, we need a certain equipment to become immersed in that computer world, right? So therefore, the Lord provides through the agency of Durga, of this material nature, Mother Prakruti, we get the gross material body. And what is this gross material body made out of? It is made out of elements. So basically, the gross body is made out of 5 gross elements, which are earth, water, air, ether, and fire. So, so these are the gross 5 elements. The Pancha Bhuta. Pancha means 5, Bhuta means the elements. The Pancha Bhutas, they make up our body. Different combinations of it. So ether and air will further join to form something called Vata. Earth and water will further join to form something called Kapha. And ether and fire and water will join together to form something called Pitta. So in this way, earth, water, fire, air, ether, these are forming the basic constituents of our body. And then they further permutate, further mix, further interact. And then they form Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So Kapha usually makes the bones of our body, the gross bones and things like that. And also the flesh and the tendons. Pitta forms the various juices, the various hormones, the blood. All this is Pitta. And Vata, the nerves and the intelligence, I mean, not intelligence, the nerves, nervous systems and all that. So that is how the body is formed. So this is the equipment which is provided by the material nature. And further combination of these will form the 10 indriyas. So the 10 indriyas are divided into 2 types. The 5 jnanendriyas. Jnana indriya. Indriya means senses. So in Malay also we call it Indra, right? Indriya. So the Pancha Indra, that's a Malay word, which is actually from Sanskrit. So Jnanendriya means knowledge acquiring senses. So there are 5 of these, which is the sense of touch, the sense of sight, the mouth to take, the tongue and the mouth to taste, and the nose to smell, and the ears to hear. And these 5 senses, the Pancha Jnanendriyas, are all grouped about in the mind, which is the king of the 5 Jnanendriyas. Controlled. It's like a chariot. A chariot driven by 5 horses. The 5 horses are all trying to go in different directions. One horse wants to go here, another horse wants to go there. So in the same way, our senses all are pulling us to different places. But and accordingly, it is all controlled by the mind. How you control the horses? You want the horses all to go in one direction. You put them harness, isn't it? So there's a rein, harness and rein. So that is the mind. And this mind can, if it's not controlled, if the reins are free, then the horses can bring the chariot in whichever direction, and we can, and it doesn't work. So therefore, you need a chariot driver, someone who's sitting in the chariot driver, controlling the reins. So that is intelligence. The chariot driver will say, turn right, turn left, go straight, stop, go faster. So that is intelligence. Intelligence should control the mind, and the mind should control the senses. So in this way, so a controlled mind is the key. And that is Jnanendriyas, right? So 15.9 Bhagavad Gita, the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind, like how I'm saying here. Therefore, he thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So what kind of particular? According to his desire and his previous karma. So that will give him a certain set of equipment for him to enjoy a certain combination of sense gratification. And then there is also 10 karmindriya, just to take input alone and cannot interact back in return. How? So therefore, we don't just want to, nowadays we have 5D rides, 6D theaters, right? You go to 5D theaters, 6D theaters, like, they will, the thing will shake you as you are watching the film, and then water will spray on you, wind will blow on you, and there'll be some things which will touch you, some strings or whatever, to give you that kind of real 5D, 4D impression. So it's not just knowledge acquiring senses. The jiva wants to do things. He wants to accomplish things. He wants to perform activities and achieve things. So therefore, to satisfy that desire, the jiva is given 5 karmendriyas, which is also part of the material body. These 5 karmendriyas are, these are the 5 karmendriyas. To interact back, the ability of speech, vak, from the tongue. Hands, so that actions can be made. Hands and legs, so that mobility is given, right? And the anus, so that the food stuff is recycled, passed down. And the genitals to satisfy the lust and also to procreate. So this is there given. So this gross material body is called, body in Sanskrit is called sarira. So gross material body, therefore stula sarira. That's the name for it. Then there is also subtle elements. These material elements, there is gross and there is also subtle material body, which is made out of the subtle elements. So subtle means fine, not something which is not easy to directly see it. It's there, but it's... So what is this subtle material body? Does anyone remember what is subtle material body? What constitutes the subtle material body from previous lessons? I've mentioned already just now a bit of hint given in the example of the chariot. Okay, anyway, so the mind, intelligence, and the ego. Manas, buddhi, and ahamkara. Manas is mind, buddhi is intelligence, and ahamkara is ego. These are real elements. They are subtle. You cannot, it doesn't take up volume, right? It doesn't have weight. So because it doesn't have weight and it doesn't take up volume, therefore it is not gross. Therefore, but it is subtle, it is there. But it is still material, it's not spiritual. So therefore it's material, right? Mind, intelligence, and ego. What is the purpose of the mind? The mind is where all the desires and impressions and feelings and thoughts, all these are kept there. The desire, all these things are there in the mind. And then intelligence is also there, which is carried with us life after life. That's why some people are born as genius. Some people are born very intelligent. Some people are born and they know calculus. Some people are born, they can straight away play the piano. Some people are just few years old and they can just play chess and become the world champion. So this is because the intelligence is carried. According to their karma, it's adjusted in certain ways. But there is also the most powerful element. The mind is not as powerful as the intelligence. And the intelligence is not as powerful as the ego. The ego, that I am the person, I am the enjoyer, I am the boss. Why should I apologize? That kind of ego. It's that I, me, myself, and I. So that is the power of ego, and it's very much a force of nature. And it is said that men have 9 times more ego than ladies. So this is the nature of the human. The scriptures say that that female has 9 times more lust than men, but the man has 9 times more ego than the female. So the control of this ego is very important for the man. And that's why humility is a very, very important uh, training for men. Discipline and humility and sense control. Whereas for the ladies, chastity is a very important control. So how to direct all her feelings, emotions, and everything to one person, to her husband. So that is chastity, faith. So the training for ladies is chastity, and the training for men is discipline of sense control and humility. So anyway, that will control the false ego. But this is a material. And in this way, this is called Sukshma Sarira. This subtle material body is Sukshma Sarira. And it doesn't die when we die. When the body dies. When the gross material body dies, this subtle material body doesn't die. It comes with us because the soul is trapped inside it. It's like the glove. It's like the glove which captures the soul, and it's brought from one body to another. Inside it is the souls. And so there's the gross body, the subtle material body, and inside that only there is the soul, Atma, which is spiritual, nothing to do with the material body. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So the soul is very small. It's just very, very small. It's like the size of an atom. It is situated in the region of the heart, just in that small place, but it's like the energy cell for the entire body. It lights up the entire body with consciousness. To the tips of our toes, to our fingers, to our ears, to our nose, everything, there is sensation and control because of the consciousness. Consciousness is called chetasa. How the consciousness spreads like light spreading from the bulb. So in this way, consciousness spreads from the soul all over the body and lights up the dark body of matter. And in this way, life takes place. So different creatures have different consciousness. So some have more evolved consciousness, like human beings. Some have more not so evolved consciousness, like animals. And plants have even less consciousness. So that's why they look inert. But they do have consciousness. It's very much hidden. So what happens at death then? So at death, this is what happens. So those of you who have seen Avengers or Doctor Strange movie, there's this picture where this guy, he will do this, and then he'll push, and then the soul comes out. So actually, the soul doesn't come out alone. The soul comes out. Actually, we cannot see the soul with our material eyes. So what comes out is the subtle body, which keeps the soul inside it. So this is the subtle body of the mind, intelligence, and false ego with a subtle body, and the soul is trapped inside. So at the time of death, this soul, which is inside the subtle body, which is inside the gross body, it separates at the time of death. The soul and the spirit, the soul trapped within the subtle material body separates. So Gita 15.8, the living entity in the material world carries different conceptions of life from one body to another, just like how the air carries aroma. You know, the air coming, if we get a nice breeze from the rose garden, we will smell roses. But if the garbage truck passes in front of our house, we will smell the garbage. Does that mean that we are now contaminated by garbage just because we smell it? No, we don't get contaminated. So in the same way, we don't have to take a bath just for smelling something. But in the same way, the air carries the garbage smell. So in the same way, the subtle body carries the soul from one body to another. But we are not the only soul. We are not the only soul. So remember, Mundaka Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, they all say that there are two birds in the tree. Right? There's the other soul. The other soul is Paramatma. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. And the super soul, he comes, the Paramatma comes with us, because the Paramatma, if the Paramatma doesn't come with us, we won't even have the body. We will not even be able to go, we will not be able to do anything actually, because we are not the masters of Prakriti. We are not the master of Prakriti. Nothing we can do in Prakriti. It's because Paramatma comes with us everywhere. Prakriti bends to his wishes. And in this way, he satisfies our desires and serves us our karma accordingly. Right? So therefore, in this way, the jiva enjoys Prakriti, the Shaitra, right, the place, and he goes through different lives. So material nature and the living entity is both beginningless. So Prakriti is beginningless. Purusha, the jiva is also beginningless. And when they combine, the transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So actually the soul doesn't transform. Nothing happens to the soul. Whatever things that happens to change is basically what happens in material nature only. And why do we know all these things? So one who knows this, knows about this, the jiva, knows about the prakriti, the transformations that take place, the different energies, right? And who knows about the master of this prakriti, Purusha. So this is all called knowledge or jnana. Anything else other than this is not jnana, because that is not the purpose of our existence in this material world. So therefore, this is what we need to know. This is real knowledge, which actually makes a big difference to us. And what knowledge has a purpose. All this knowledge we get, understanding from scripture, all this knowledge we can understand. Science can only teach us about Prakriti, material. They will go on discovering newer and newer things, and Prakriti will go on developing further and further and further. More and more they will always need to find. They will never come to the end of Prakriti, the scientists, right? They will keep on searching only. That's their thing. But spirit can only be understood by scripture, through scripture, word of God. Science cannot understand spirit. No matter how long they try, they will never understand the soul. They can understand subtle matter, they can understand mind, intelligence, and ego eventually, but they will never understand the soul. They cannot capture it, they cannot document it, they cannot perform experiments on it. So, therefore, this is knowledge coming from scripture. And the object of knowledge ultimately is to know Krishna. So therefore, Krishna is Jnana, the object of knowledge. Because by knowing Krishna, we can once and for all go back to the Lord. All our problems in life are solved if this is solved, if this is understood. So one who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. So this is what we call Pasyanti Jnana Chakshusha. Chakshusha means eyes, one who sees with the eyes of Jnana, knowledge. So 13:19, thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. And who can understand this? Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly. That means those who are not devotees of the Lord, they can understand some parts of it. Like scientists, they can understand some parts of Prakruti. And other types of spiritualists, they can understand some aspects of Shaitra, some aspects of the soul. But to understand the full picture, only my devotees can understand this thoroughly. And thus attain Jnaya, the object of knowledge, and come back to me. So that is the conclusion of Krishna in 13:19 Bhagavad Gita. So that's Prakruti. So in this way, we are going through life after life, fueled by our desires, which is born out of our impressions or vasanas from previous lives, or wherever that we are getting those impressions, we also develop those desires. But due to our body, due to our activities, we sometimes perform things which we should not do, forbidden activities. So therefore, we perform pious activities, we perform sinful activities, and in this way, we collect karma. So our desires become bound by the karma. So, and karma controls what our desires want. So in this way, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments of this world. What does that mean? That means whatever we are suffering or enjoying in this world is ultimately due to us, not due to God. Why is it due to us? Because we are the ones who desired. So because of our desire, right, we have done either punya or papa. And why are we enjoying or suffering? We are enjoying or suffering because Mother Prakriti gives us our due results according to our karma. So that's why it says here, nature is said to be the cause of material causes. So what are these material causes? Enjoyment and suffering. It's due to material nature, which is Prakriti. So, and the person who is the manifestation of Prakriti is Durga Devi. She is the material energy. So she is the one who is giving us our due sufferings and our due enjoyment. But she is not the cause. We are the cause. We are the ones who did what we did, and we deserved what we are getting. And this is going on life after life. So the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. And all of these actually trap us in this cycle of birth and death due to our ignorance. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita 13:24 concludes, one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature. So why is this knowledge important for us? When we knowledge in the beginning, okay, we know, but we have to be convinced. We have to develop our faith very strongly. We have to act in such a way so that we have full faith. And this faith will fuel our devotional activities. So by understanding this thoroughly, right, we will not be disturbed by the reversals that we face in our life. When we go through difficulties, we will understand why we are going through them. And we will be fixed in our goal. We will not be deviated from our goal. So therefore, Krishna says, one person who does this, who becomes the Shaitranya, is sure to attain liberation. he will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So it doesn't matter what our present karma is. In any situation of our karma, if we are fortunate to receive this knowledge and act according to this knowledge, then this knowledge is the key to this prison where we can escape. Okay, so it is now 9:10. I wanted to do practical spirituality again, but still, I think I've overshot the time with this. But anyway, I thought this was an important point, and we can go through it nicely and slowly so that we can understand this thoroughly. So I will just do the practical spirituality part, the nectar of instruction next time. So I will skip this for now. Okay, any questions anyone wants to raise before we close? Before that, I'll just remind everyone again, the food for the soul. We have taken our dinner or we have not taken our dinner, but have we given food for the soul, the spiritual part of us? The body and the material body and the subtle body, we also have the spiritual part. So this is the food for the soul, which strengthens the consciousness of the soul so that we are able to overcome the dictates of our mind and purify our How do we overcome the dictates of our mind? We purify our intelligence, and in this way, by chanting, by performing spiritual activity, our ahamkara, our false ego, it starts to melt. So as our false ego melts, our intelligence grows, then we are able to control our mind more and more. And in this way, we are able to control our senses. And in this way, we are able to direct our senses towards the service of the Lord. And then we can go back to the Supreme Abode. So let us say this together. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. Thank you for chanting together. So we hope that we will go on chanting, right, and increase our chanting. So let me wish everybody happy Ekadasi tomorrow. And after that, there's also Pongal coming on Saturday. So yeah, any questions before we close? So there's nothing on the chat box. So I hope the session was clear. You could understand the difference between spirit and matter. And in matter also, there is gross and subtle. So this is something which is important for us to understand. So the magic, all this magic and powers that people see in this world, so that is all not spiritual. So if one is able to produce things, produce milk from one's hand, or produce that, or create some kind of magical effect, these magical powers, these are called siddhis. They are not actually spiritual. They are material, and they are subtle. So it's a manipulation of the subtle material elements which is able to produce these effects. So sometimes people think it's spiritual, but it's not. So that has to be understood. Okay. All right, so if there's nothing further, if you do think of any questions, if later on, you think about it and suddenly a question drops or some kind of a doubt comes up, anytime just jot it down and you can send it over to me and we can discuss it in the chat or in the next meeting or something. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me in this session. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.